Oh, yes. All right, I got it.
Okay.
All right, I'll give people just a couple more minutes to sign on. All right, and then hopefully we'll get some people live. I figured with the Viking game we might not get some people, but you know, at least they're doing something athletically related, right?
Yes.
Um, cool. So we'll just have you guys go around and share what association you have worked with, and then previous roles that you've served, and then what your current role is as well. So Matt, I'll have you start.
Yeah, sure. I'm Matt Yorston. I'm the current boys youth side of our youth program, the president, Cloquet Esco Carlton CEC Lacrosse, also the JV high school coach. So my history is I played at UMD. I'm not sure if it's Minnesota Duluth.
Yeah.
Coached the women's team for about 10 years. Kind of bounced around with work, and then kind of got to Cloquet, back where I grew up, and I started getting the program hopping a little bit around here. So
Awesome. Thanks. Debbie, I'll have you go next.
Yeah. My name's Deborah Debbie Van Endenberg. I am currently the Minnetonka Girls Youth kind of program administrator. I've been essentially their girls director for the last 5 years. And as our boards kind of built up a really strong volunteer side of the girls, I've been able to pass off the director level roles. So more of a program admin role right now, which is great. I played at the U of M Twin Cities in college and have been coaching various places since then. A little bit in New York and then some clubs around here before I started at Minnetonka.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. And then Brian, I'll have you go next.
Awesome. Brian LaCour. I'm currently serve on the 218 Lax board as treasurer. And then I also coach a 14U team in the spring and then an 18U team. This is all girls in the summer, fall, and winter. Um, I didn't play lacrosse, but I have three girls that do, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And then Justin, I'll have you finish up.
Yeah, Justin Hoban. I just wrapped up a 6-year term as president of Mounds View Irondale. I'm currently running their tryouts. I coached at Tino Grace. I was varsity head coach there from 2002 to 2014, and coached club at 1 year for Chill, 4 years for Team Minnesota, and then was in this role for the last 6 years. So I played at St. Thomas, and a little bit. I grew up in New York.
Ooh, I did not know that. Cool. Well, I'll kind of have you guys just go backwards now. So we'll start with Justin, Brian, and then Debbie, and then Matt. But if you could give us like a few things that have been the most helpful ways that you guys have helped to grow your associations. And I guess some of them are probably going to be repetitive, but if you can build on what other people have said before you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too much down that very kind of rabbit hole, I would say for us, tri-lacrosses have been instrumental. We've run 3 a year, and we put them out everywhere. We encourage current players to come. We end almost everything we do with, what's more fun than lacrosse with friends. So our growth has been very strong related to just constantly telling our families, like, hey, tell your friends to come. I mean, when I took over Mounds View, it's about 120 kids across the boys and girls side. And I mean, we were 360 last year with 19 teams. So it's exploded over the last few years. But I would say, the tri-lacrosse is having several of them and then obviously having them really well staffed and really well run. is because, you get so many families that they're nervous about a sport they don't know.
Yeah.
And if you can make them feel like, oh, my kid had a good time and this is something I want to do, I think that has helped a ton. I mean, we don't get kids that come to try lacrosses that don't sign up. I mean, we've gotten 80, 90 kids that try lacrosses, and it's out of control, but everybody's having a good time. So I would say that our focus on word of mouth and then our try lacrosses of, and then secondarily, obviously you have to provide a good product or people won't advocate for you. But those would be the big ones for me that I would say kind of helped us get to the spot we're in.
Yeah. To piggyback on that a little bit, what times of year do you run your try lacrosse events?
Yeah, so we do them all after the first of the year.
Okay.
So we will do like one mid-February, or excuse me, one mid-January, one early February, one late February, because our registration usually, is running during that time. And we try to do them before and during registration.
Awesome. Well, Brian, what about you guys up at 218?
Well, I think to kind of piggyback off of what Justin said, lacrosse is a super sticky sport for the kids. Like it's really easy to get into it and really have a lot of fun. So what we've been really focusing on is being easy to do business with parents. Like, is it effortless to get registration done? Are we clearly communicating and are we reliable with our prepared plan? Like, do the coaches show up on time? Are the games on time? Like there's a lot of stuff competing for the parents' time and money. So if we can try to solve most of their problems before they even come up and make it smooth and easy to do business with, I think that has really helped us focus on that side of stuff. So, and part of that's just building a lacrosse community, having the social events, having the year-end party, those things that when you get to the end of the season, you don't want to do because you're tired and you just want to be done. But like saying, no, we're going to do these things for the whole community, I think that really helps.
Awesome. Debbie, how about you guys at Minnetonka? Anything that's helped you guys a ton?
Yeah, I mean, to echo Brian, I think being preemptive with issues on our back end, so communication and systems are smooth when parents have to interact with it, we have grown in that, so that's been helpful. It's been really great for us to incorporate high school JV and varsity players in coaching, particularly during our fall winter clinics and coaching in the summer. I think just it adds an extra like for middle school students to be coached and surrounded by those older players who they look up to. That drives retention quite a bit. And I think also developing relationships with multi-sport parents. They have access and influence with other families and athletes who could be on the fence about going multi-sport. And I think when they love our program, they bring in other athletes who might be on the fence about committing to more sports, but once they play lacrosse, like they're in. So just appreciating and being easy to work with those parents in particular goes a long way.
Yeah. Awesome. Matt, how about you guys up at CEC?
One thing that it's not exactly easy, but I've gotten, after doing this a few years, I've gotten to figure out who all the local gym teachers are at the elementary and middle schools. And I go hit a school for a full day. And it's not, I mean, like I said, it's
Bless your soul.
it's not easy, but it's helped our numbers, I mean, tremendously. So
Yeah.
that's probably where we've gained the most, I think. And then obviously, and then kind of feeding off of what everyone else is saying. I mean, showing that everything is in order. Your program isn't just some fly-by-night program. You run a tight ship. It's not going to be a waste of time or money.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, come off looking presentable and just try to get as much, exposure as you can. And also, like what Deborah, what you were saying, multi-sport athletes. We don't come, like Brian and I can attest. we don't have a big enough school district to where our kids specialize in anything. So if we push that, if you haven't tried it before, we don't care. If you're an athlete, it'll work. No
Mhm.
worries. So that's been something that we really got to push up here.
Awesome. And then Matt, you said you go to elementary schools, or is it elementary and junior high, or just
Yes. Yep.
okay, both of them?
Everything. Yep.
Ooh, yeah, that's a lot. Having done those sometimes, especially in the school setting, I can say they're a lot, but the teachers and like the programs that we've done that for have like really enjoyed it and thought that they
Mhm.
got good numbers out of it. So I think if that's something that you can handle, and even just like having conversations with the gym teachers, because like at Augsburg, when I was there, we would have gym teachers that would be out, like future gym teachers that would be learning the sport of lacrosse, and like the god awful little plastic sticks that they have to
Yeah.
use, and just like, I mean, even just to connect with them and be able to like help teach the lacrosse portion of
Mhm.
gym is super helpful. That's a really great idea.
Yep.
Um,
And the other thing that we've done is, especially starting last year, since our varsity program just got going within the last year, is I'll let our players know, when I'm going to be at whatever school, and
yeah,
if they can get a couple of them to stop in, whether they have a study hall or whatever, just so the elementary kids can see, the big varsity guys coming in,
yep.
that helps too.
Yeah, for sure. Just like what Debbie touched on and having
Correct.
those, yeah,
Yep.
they listen a little differently for them than they do
Absolutely.
sometimes too.
Yep.
Awesome. So Matt, I'll start with you again and we'll just go back through, but is there anything that you guys have done that has flopped and didn't work that you thought would be more successful?
Oh, um,
Probably a good thing if you don't have anything, but
yeah, I'm, my guess is yes, but I'm not exactly sure what. And we haven't been around terribly long enough to where, I mean, I guess I'm not sure. Like I said, I've tried been going to the schools, which has helped, and that's kind of been our main recruiting. At times in the past, I just making sure we have, the correct kind of backup off the field, that you try to put, people in the best spots to do whatever their particular job requires.
yeah,
And that's just kind of trial by fire.
yep.
So
Well, good. Debbie, anything in
Yeah,
Minnetonka? Yeah.
for sure. um, so what really did not work as well as we're hoping for was having high schoolers as head coaches at the 12U and the 14U level. Um, we've done like variations of that in different summers, and ultimately the age gap is not large enough. The dynamics can become closer to like friend, future teammate, which can versus like coach and player, and that can be difficult to maintain that kind of like leadership and oversight that's needed from a head coach, especially with players at that age.
Yeah.
And the obviously it's super important to be consistent as a coach just in terms of attendance and things. And high schoolers, especially high schooler lacrosse, are traveling a lot for club, and just can't be as consistent as is needed in a head coach, which is okay when they're assistant coaches. So I think that's definitely been a struggle in the past, but once we kind of wrapped our heads around that, we
Mhm.
figured out how to use them really well as assistant coaches.
Awesome.
So
And then do you have parents serving in that head coach role, or is it like college players?
we have parents. Let's see, we prioritize paid coaches, so like graduated college players. Um, we're recruiting heavily from like the the high schools program to like keep coaching, just hop with us for the summer. Um, for the 12 and 14U, and then there's yes, parent volunteers, especially for 8, 10, and 12. Still supported by high schoolers, and kind of who does what depends on typically like the parents' level of lacrosse knowledge and things like that.
Got it. Awesome. Anything else you can think of? Okay, awesome. Brian, how about you guys?
Uh, we're pretty new too. We're just celebrating 1 year at 2-8 Lacrosse. We used to be part with Matt, and we kind of split off, and CEC boys went one way and the girls went the other way. So I have a lot of the similar experiences as Matt. But thinking about things that just didn't lead to results that we want. I think we did paid Facebook ads during registration time, trying to find three-sport athletes or
Yeah.
parents of three-sports athletes, and that didn't work at all. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Noted. All right, Justin, how about you guys?
Well, we blanket the school district with signs. So we stick signs out everywhere. It's hard to quantify that. We've toned it down a little bit in recent years. I didn't say social media, but we have a pretty consistent social media. We have a couple people that handle it for us. I think that helps a lot on the good side. As far as flops go, the first couple years there's a program that Mounds View Irondale School or the Mounds View Schools uses for like their newsletter. It's called Peach Jar, and it's absurdly expensive. Like, so to run it in all of the middle schools or something, it was like $400 or $500. And when we looked at because it keeps stats for you, it was like we got like 8 people opened it, right? I mean, it was absolutely preposterous for like, that you were charging that much for, something that reached no one.
Yeah.
So we quickly moved on from dumping money down that hole. But
Awesome.
but otherwise, yeah, that's probably, when you're early on trying to grow, you try everything, right? Signs, and you want to get it to everybody, but that didn't work.
Yeah.
Too much white noise for parents in that area.
Yeah. Now having a kid in school, I can understand how that can easily happen.
I don't read them for my kids' school.
Communication sometimes, so
I'm part of the problem. Yep.
yeah. Unfortunately, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Did you partner with your high school programs to strengthen recruitment and retention at all, Justin?
Yes and no. We have a unique situation here. We have 2 high schools, right? So we have Mounds View and Irondale. So this is always kind of a point of contention for us. I mean, I've had, I'd say 2 issues there. Mounds View especially has been a revolving door of coaches. Nobody's there longer than 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody comes in and they want to do all this stuff, and then they move on to the next stage of their life. And then there's a new coach in who has a different plan and might not be back and forth. It has not been something that I have focused on at all while I was in charge. And I think we've had a lot of philosophical talks about like what the mission of our association is, like, and is there anything in that mission that speaks to like preparing them from high school or stuff like that? And there isn't, right? That's not, we're here to provide lacrosse opportunities for the youth players, 14 and under, and that's kind of where we focus. On the girls' side, we did start bringing in some assistant coaches, like Debbie said, especially at 8s and 10s, and the girls adore them. The girls absolutely adore them.
Mm-hmm.
On the boys' side, we haven't, candidly, high school boys or having been a high school boy, and they're a little flighty. The ones you would want are playing club. They're doing all this stuff too. They don't have the capacity. Every year I get a couple that call me, and it feels like it never kind of transpires. So we have not, for good or for bad, we have not had a lot of connection with the high schools in that capacity.
Got it.
The next regime might change that or focus on that more than I did, but it was not a focal point for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you made a good point that sometimes it changes too based on who the high school coach is, right? And like what their philosophy is and what they think is important. But I do just I know the girls side way better than the boys, but historically a lot of the really good girls programs have really just like great, well-run youth organizations. And I think a lot of the times, like their high school coaches play a role and an impact in there. So I think there's something there, but again, like you said, there can be turnover and there can be people that just don't understand it and don't want to work with it. But yeah, just kind of wanted to see what you
No,
guys did.
listen, I agree wholeheartedly. One of my best friends is Lance Keene down at Rosemount, right? And he's been there for 20 years, and he's heavily involved in the youth program. You know, in my 12 years at Tadino Grace, Mounds View had 5 different coaches in that 12-year stretch, right? Like, and we have 4 high school coaches that we technically would have to kind of work with between boys and girls on both Mounds View and Irondale.
Right.
So it is not. It's been. I don't know that the juice has been worth the squeeze for us. Just candidly, it was just a little too unruly. You know.
Yep.
And they both just had new coaches last year again too.
Yep.
Actually, 3 of the 4 had new coaches in the last year. So.
Yeah. Brian, how about you guys? Do you do anything with the high school programs up there?
Yeah, so this last year was the first year that all the youth kids that we serve also had a high school program to their name. So it's been a little different. Half the kids had an opportunity, half the kids didn't. So this year we did have some, youth nights where they get to go out on the field and, be the tunnel and all that stuff. And that's super impactful for those 12U, 14U. I think seeing that there's a place for them, girls they know, that's a scary time, the transition, and knowing that there's friendly faces there waiting for them, I think is pretty, again, makes lacrosse an easier thing to sign up for. But yeah, being that it's the first year, it's really, I don't know how impactful it is, but it was fun.
Yeah. When you guys did that, was that organized by you or was that the high school coach that organized
It was it was us that kind of pushed for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, it's similar, we had a 2-year run with the current coaches and a 2-year run before that. So I think when the youth drives it, it's easier to maintain some consistency there.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree there. Debbie, I know you guys touched a little bit on it as far as like using them players as coaches. Is there anything else that you guys do with the high school programs?
We we help them advertise for kind of a one-time clinic that they put on as a fundraiser. So they're essentially planning and executing a clinic style play day for basically our girls, but it's obviously supports their program. I don't know. We typically have to drive like communication up, especially around like, is high school going to be taking taking 8th graders, things like that.
Yeah.
But the high school boosters have been pretty strong, and a lot of them were in the program as youth, and so are pretty great about making sure we have a youth day set up and helping us, if not driving that themselves.
Okay.
So, I think we don't have a ton of touch points with the coaches, but also understanding like they have a lot on their plate too. And we kind of see we're trying to build the best pipeline we can for the high school lacrosse, to the point where I wish they would have more teams because we're giving them a lot of girls, but
yeah. Awesome. Matt, how about you guys?
Yeah, we kind of, because we're just kind of getting rolling and we're at the same age. Previously, we're the Northern Siege. And then when we picked up our varsity team, CEC Lacrosse, then we decided to go, we're CEC Lacrosse, and this is strictly on the boys' side. Our girls are with 218 with Brian. Our boys program, CEC, is we advertise it U6 through high school.
Okay.
So we do a lot of our fundraising is all done together. Last year, our varsity guys did a camp, and obviously for our kids, and we also opened it up to all kids, wide open. We went, advertised in Duluth, Arrowhead, Grand Rapids. I mean, anyone could have signed up for it.
Yeah.
So we're extremely interactive, and it probably helps that I'm the president and also an assistant coach, so I can kind of go back and forth a little bit, just not necessarily by choice, but by necessity.
Yeah.
So so that way it's worked okay because we've got our board consists of high school parents, youth parents, and we just kind of collectively figure out what's the best for everyone, and that's kind of usually how we move forward.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think a little niche, not necessarily everybody can do it necessarily that way, but I think that that's an interesting way to combine it and have it all run. And again, helpful that you are a coach also for the high school program.
Yeah.
Awesome. Then, have you adjusted anything or removed anything from programming to keep players coming back each year? Sorry about my dog.
We've the biggest thing we've done, because and still what we run into a lot up here is a lot of our lacrosse players are hockey players. So once spring hits, it's still a lot of them are still doing like some AAA stuff or on different teams and all that type of thing. So we'll get kind of get a consensus from our coaches, and it's kind of up to them to let us know, what weekends they're going to have a full team, what weekends they're not, and we kind of plan their tournaments or play days around, be as flexible as we can. Obviously we're not going to make everyone happy, but if we can kind of try to be somewhat flexible, it seems we can kind of answer a lot of questions for kids that are on the fence about playing a different spring sport. Is we just kind of tell everyone, hey, we'll work with you and we'll do what we can. Just try not to just say nope. If this certain AAA tournament is this weekend, you can't go. That's not going to go very far. So
yeah. Debbie, how about you guys?
Similar to Matt, we have to kind of play around hockey. So we plan our spring tryouts around hockey stuff. It's just we're Minnesota, we've got to do it.
mm-hmm.
We also try to pay a lot of attention to club travel, both at the middle school and high school level when planning summer practices, games, and tournaments. So we're not making them choose, or we're not down coaches. And then also club tryouts tend to be towards the end of July, which we still have games and things. So we just try to acknowledge those conflicts and be pretty like open about, hey, we're not having practice because there are these tryouts. You should go try out, because we think that's important too. I think when I was just thinking about this, something that we've kind of refined over the last 2 or 3 seasons is we used to move practices around if a game was scheduled during a practice time. So if we had Monday, Wednesday practices consistently, but sometime we had a game on Wednesday, we'd move practice to like a Thursday. Keeping consistent day and time practices, even when games interfere, I think has gone quite a ways. Parents seem to appreciate consistency despite sometimes having fewer practices. But just keeping that something's happening on Monday, something's happening on Wednesday every week versus definitely Monday and Wednesday, but maybe a Tuesday or a Thursday thrown in. Who knows? That's really cut down on, I think, like, I think that has helped parents just like commit and keep moving forward with the program.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense. Brian, how about anything you guys have done?
I think, well, we're darn near in Canada here, so spring and fields and turf are a challenge for us. We don't have a lot of indoor turf. There's really only one facility up here that can handle us. So in the beginning, we used to do gym time, and that was easier to come by. But the experience of lacrosse is so poor for us in the gym that we just kind of had to remove it and say that's just that's not an environment that's conducive to people enjoying lacrosse. It's too loud, it's too chaotic, it can be dangerous. So we just kind of said if we're not doing indoor turf, we're waiting for the outdoor turf. And so sometimes, like last year we got tons of rain, the year before that tons of snow. That can push back the start date of practice quite a bit into the spring, but we feel like overall it's just a better experience, especially for the youth kids. I mean, it's different in high school, but eights and tens with balls flying off of, rubber balls flying off of concrete walls is just not something we do anymore. So we had to adjust that.
Yeah, for the better. Awesome. And then Justin, anything you guys have changed over the years?
Um, let's see. I mean, when we added 6U, we've kept it co-ed, and it's just in-house. It's no equipment, right?
Okay.
So it's more like a 6-8 week clinic.
Yep.
We've gotten a little bit of push to go to running, like a 6U team. But so far I've been able to fend those off. I think that's unnecessary, to be completely candid with you. I know some people do it, but
Yeah.
I don't want to send 5-year-olds across the city. They can't play anyway. So,
Yeah.
so we've done that completely in-house. We've gotten a couple, people that are like, well, Timmy's done 2 years of the 6U, like he's ready for the next thing. Well, he's going to have to wait 1 more year, kind of a deal. Yeah, the rest of it is very, again, like we've gone from a spot where we were a cute little association where everybody was happy because it was, everybody played. And now we have tryouts, and we had 3 12U teams, and we have A and B, and like that creates a whole lot of different, how are you going to run this stuff? So that's made us have to evolve the last 2 years, especially as we've gotten to basically, we ran 3 12U boys teams last year. We had 65 boys. We have got, 2 girls teams, 2 14s, 2 14s. So that required a lot of changes, and like just, things that we had never thought about for 3-4 years. And you think you're prepared for it. You think you know how to handle it. You do it the first year and you go, shouldn't have done it that way. So, but that's probably a different answer to a different question. But yeah.
No, I mean, I think I would like to maybe get into that, because I know that is a thing for some associations, that they're, the good news is that they're getting bigger, and then the bad news is that now they have to run tryouts. So if you guys, I know that like, MVI does it, Minnetonka does it. I don't know CEC. I know 2 and 8. You guys have talked about maybe needing to do it in the next year or so. So if you could kind of talk about like some things that have worked really well for that, and maybe some learning lessons that didn't go so well, I think that would be helpful for people. So Justin, I'll let you kind of continue.
Yeah. So last year was the first year. So we've had multiple teams for a couple of years, for 3 or 4 years at the high levels, but we got away with the 2B teams for a year or two. And so 2 years ago, it kind of got to this level. It was like, all right, we need to do this. And it was interesting. We did it. And it was like 14U was a disaster. 14U boys. We had 36 kids, and we ended up running 2 teams of 18. And the B team was abysmal, right? Like, and 18 is fine when everybody shows, but when you get to numbers of 360 kids, you definitely get kids that are like, oh, my friend said this is fun, but I also dance, or I also play hockey 13 months a year, or stuff like that. So like you end up adding fringe kids a little bit, right? Which at 8 and 10 is fine, but at 12 and 14, you're trying out is a problem. And so we learned a lot of lessons there, just about like realistic roster sizes when you have competitive teams. It's you can't borrow kids from A to go down to the B team, right? So like last year on the girls at 12U, we left the B team quite a bit bigger than the A team, so that we could bring girls up without breaking all the rules, right? So that required some navigation. On the boys side, boys have been okay. I mean, our actual tryouts, we had to build a tryout process from nothing, right? And I will say having a tryout meeting was vital for that, but it was fascinating. I mean, 2 years ago when I had a tryout meeting, I had back-to-back questions with a mom who asked me why we don't use all independent evaluators, followed immediately by a mom who wanted to know why the coaches aren't involved, right? And it was just a reminder that like everybody thinks they know how to do it. And our focus has been like my focus, because I've basically largely run that, is like our job is to get it right? Like that's ultimately we want to get kids in the right spot.
Yeah.
I think the concept of independent evaluators is a farce. Your high school team doesn't have independent evaluators. Your club teams don't have independent evaluators. This is a concept that exists for youth sports because parents are afraid of nepotism. So we do a little bit of a hybrid because I am realistic about what youth parents are used to. So the first year we brought homegrown in, and the first day we used your guys' form from a few years ago. And I got halfway through it and I was like, this is preposterous because I'm chasing numbers for all these kids, right?
Yeah.
I got an hour and I got 45 kids out there and I'm trying to score every kid in 6 categories from, if they can chew gum and walk at the same time versus how hard their shot is. And I was like, I don't need this. Like I can look at a kid and go, he's not an A player, right? Like, so I don't need to keep watching him to put scores across the whole thing, or I could do the 1-1-1-1-1, right, and then move on. So we kind of revamped it after the first year, and we did kind of a hybrid, right? So like we brought homegrown people in and had them do theirs, and then we created our own form with our coaches and then like independent contacts that I had, right? And then the actual people, our coaches and the people we brought in, not the homegrown. We took the homegrown data and we sit down for an hour and we talk about talk about every kid and we just kind of figure it out. So it's been pretty good. I don't think we've had too much blowback from placement. I mean, you get bubble kids or bubble kids. It's every sport, right? Like you can swap out 3 on either side of the line, but you got to have a line. So that's pretty good for us. But that's my capacity now, is I am the tryout guru. So I put together a big list of what I wanted, the times that I wanted, like how many hours I need to do it efficiently and stuff like that. So I got to go and hear how much time they were able to get for the indoor time coming up here. But the reality is that a lot of tryouts is a dog and pony show. I mean, it just is. People don't want to hear it, but you could pick your team down to 90% without the tryouts. The tryouts are about that. They're about the bubble, right? And we've been pretty frontal about that, to be honest with you. I've said that in meetings, the last day we might only ask 25 kids to come. Like, I don't need to see the top and the bottom again. We want to make sure we get it right. And if your kid's not in a spot for A, or your kid is, going to be on a B team, a brand new player, does a brand new player need to be getting eyes on him the last day of tryouts, or should we be spending that time looking at the kids that are on the bubble? So, it's interesting. I was ready to be done last year after 1 year of putting together tryouts, just because it was so much work, because we went from not doing it to having to do it 4 different times, twice for the boys and twice for the girls.
Yeah.
And now you got places that want to go in at 10, which don't get me started. But so I don't know. It's I could talk about it for days, but that's kind of, we've done a hybrid of kind of bringing in independent people that kind of do just straight numbers, and then our own kind of process that's a little bit more, I wouldn't say subjective, because people like to treat numbers like data. They're not. It's opinions that have been converted into a number.
For sure.
It's
especially in a tryout.
like you're not timing 40s or, so it's not really data, but so that's what I would say about that.
And then you guys do tryouts in the spring, and then you do a separate tryout in the summer?
Well, that's a different thing. We run one season. I would respectfully, the hockey thing is real. It is. Our association is growing in hockey too, right? I think we're second behind Stillwater for in District 2 for hockey. I have a lot of hockey players. My kids play hockey. I am a big believer that I wouldn't expect in the hockey season one of my kids to miss to go to lacrosse. And this probably goes back to being a high school coach for a decade, but I've taken a fairly hard line about we're just going to run one season. I think running 2 tryouts for a volunteer board that has 8 people on it, when the spring season ends on a Sunday and we have games the following Tuesday, is unrealistic. I think having kids that make A in the spring, have somebody who lacrosse is not as important to them, show up in the summer and go, sorry, your spot is you're moving to B because Johnny's a better athlete than you, is not fair to our kids that are most passionate about lacrosse. We don't take a hard line on like, you have to be at everything. What we have done is it's kind of been organic at 8s and 10s. We're like, just come, you got to miss something. We understand, who cares? Play as much as you can, as long as you can. Right. So like at 8s and 10s, it's fine. Right. You've got AAA hockey, so be it. But at 12 and 14, especially the last 2 years, we wrote an attendance policy last year, right? Just about expectation, right? And lacrosse is a 3-season sport. It should get the same respect that your hockey season gets, that your football season gets. We understand conflicts will happen, and we're not interested in being heavy-handed. If you do have a AAA tournament one weekend, okay, well, that's fine. There's no penalty. But if you have a AAA weekend every weekend in May, you can't play.
Right.
You just can't, right? Like you couldn't play hockey if you're playing box lacrosse and you're leaving every weekend to go to a box tournament. Hockey would tell you no, right? So we've taken that kind of same approach, and it's been fine. I actually think it has helped our numbers grow. It hasn't stunted us at all. I mean, we have 360 kids playing. The slippery slope now is club, because as we've developed, I mean, I have 43 6th graders playing lacrosse, right? Next year, it'll probably be over 50. We add about 6 to 10 kids every year, even last year as 6th and 7th graders. And like the numbers have gotten to the point where like we're not scaring anybody away with our attendance policy. They keep coming because hockey players are serious athletes. Like if they come do something, they expect it to be run and treated a similar way, I think, right? But we had to do an attendance policy, but that came back to the light numbers on 14 and stuff, because we had kids that were playing basketball too, right? Or a lot of dance on the girls' side, ton of dance, right? Like girls that are making the B team has 18 girls, 6 of them were dancing, and that dance schedule is no joke.
Yeah.
Right. And the girls team would have 9 girls for a game when there are 17 on the roster. So that was new this year too. We had to kind of do attendance, and at 14 and 12, we just kind of lay out like, the expectation is that you're going to be here, right? Like we're not heavy handed. If you got to miss something, we understand you're multi-sport athletes, but we do expect to get top billing during lacrosse season. So we do get pushback about it I feel like every 2 years. And I'm taking too much time, so I'll wrap this, but I feel like there's 3 people that have a problem with our full season. Club players who don't want us in the summer because they don't want to feel guilty about missing.
Yep.
People that aren't serious about lacrosse, right? And then 8th graders who want to play with their high school team and then come back to us in the summer.
Yeah.
They represent a fraction of who we are. And if, we've had board members. I have board members who have served when their kids as 8th graders went and played high school and they didn't play with us. And those board members have supported that too.
Yeah.
So that's been the way we've approached it.
Yeah. Awesome. Debbie, I'll have you go next just because I know you guys have done tryouts for a couple years. So is there any learning lessons you guys have gathered or ways that you think have worked really well to run tryouts the last couple years?
Yeah, I think there's some similarities to what Justin was saying, but also some different approaches that we take. Our first year so I'm speaking only for the girls side of Minnetonka here, and I also coached 12U and 14U at Minnetonka, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. First year we held tryouts was for the summer season of 2023 because we had out of nowhere like enough 14U players to make a 3rd team. We had 2 healthy teams in the spring and then all of a sudden 3 in the summer, and we were like, Oh shit. So those were like hurried and informal, and the next year we decided we'd be doing it in this, like before the spring. We hired homegrown. That was great. I wish you would still do that. um, I what I appreciated about that is that we had this independent evaluators to give us data that kind of could balance or highlight the things that I knew about the players and that some other coaches knew. And it was a lot easier to at least make a rough cut of all the teams and then talk more about the bubbles, based on like, it's a fine line of balancing what do others see and what do we know. But I think it was also important to have not me, but especially not parents who are also board members and our parents be running tryouts. They weren't on the fields. They helped check in, but they weren't like, it was closed to parents, board or not. I do not have any kids, no kids in the program. I'm a pretty neutral party, I think, in this, and that I don't live or work in the community beyond Minnetonka Lacrosse. So there's not an additional like social dynamic or anything that I have to navigate, which is helpful, I think. But we have one tryout in the spring, and those carry over. We set the expectation that it carries over for our summer teams as well. If there are some like number, if we'll have to flex a couple maybe based on summer registrations. And if we have to balance numbers, it's based on coach recommendations for who to kind of keep or move up, as well as a little position stuff. But by and large, everyone expects to just be spring and summer, same team. At that point, they're gelled. It's, I think it's more of a hassle than we have the time or capacity to deal with. It's like a 3-day break between summer ending, spring ending, and summer starting. We just don't have the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Brian or Matt, you guys have anything to add about tryouts, or if you do them, or if you're looking to do them in the next couple years, things that you're trying to hope to accomplish with them?
As far as the youth side goes, we're not really in any position to have any kind of tryouts. And if we do have enough for 2 teams, then we'll split up. Like I think last year we had 2 teams at our 10s. Okay. So we split them up equally. And then what we did do is the kit, and it really just kind of, and it seems this is how it would normally shake out no matter what kind of sport we're talking. We had 2 even teams for our 10s, but we also opened up, I think we played 2 tournaments in the summer, and we opened it up to all of our 10s saying, hey, we've got, if you want to keep playing, we've got opportunities, just understand these 2 tournaments are not going to be equal playing time. And that really, I mean, if we would have had tryouts, it would have been the exact team that we ended up showing up.
Yeah.
So that's about the closest thing we've had to a tryout right now anyway.
Yeah. Brian, how about you guys?
Yeah, we're a unique situation. So the youth stuff in spring, we haven't had to, we're not close to needing to do tryouts or anything like that. And we do it the same way Matt is and just split the lower. But at the club level in the summer, that's where we open up our program to any of the northern girls. So we have girls from Grand Rapids, Superior, Duluth, and then our Proctor, Hermantown, Cloquet, Esco, Carleton. So even girls from Brainerd. So that's where we're at, where we're like, we're growing enough and they're not playing in the spring together. And that's where we're seeing the need for a tryout. And we don't know all of them. It is really a tryout, like coming down and, but trying to work our way, there's a tipping point and you can't be too early and you can't be too late. So it's like, where are we going to time it where that's the number of girls where now we need, and, what if all these girls that say they're going to don't, now you got 1.5 teams. So that's where we're at right now. Just that kind of gray murky area where we're not quite sure, but we know that it's coming and we want to be prepared for it when it does get here.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
Can I add something quickly about
Yeah.
how we do tryouts? We only hold tryouts, the girls, for 12U and 14U teams.
Mhm.
We divide our 8U and 10U largely based on what elementary school they go to. And then in terms of schedule conflicts with the program, obviously there's association sports and there's club sports, and then school stuff. Obviously the expectation is you're going to be there, but then there are some kids whose parents are like, this. Whenever they ask, basically like, we expect you to be here, but if there are conflicts, we respect how you prioritize based on your family's logistics and schedule. If obviously there's the outliers of the 18 player who doesn't come to 6 games, but usually it's like, we know you're committed. We also know you have a bunch of other stuff going on, so we're not going to dictate that what you need to do, but like, we're also not going to punish your kid for something they can't control. So
Yeah. Awesome. And I'll just touch on like tryouts. If you have tryout questions, you feel free to reach out to me. I know, like Debbie said, Homegrown is trying to move away from not doing tryouts anymore, so we're not doing any this year. But I'm pretty sure we'd be happy to like share our rubric and our metrics that we have with you guys. So if you do have any questions, just shoot me an email and I'll get you connected, or get that form over to you. One thing that we are encouraging is for teams to kind of like split tryouts. So whether that's like Minnetonka runs MVI's tryouts and MVI runs Minnetonka's tryouts, so that you do have some of those like independent parties that don't know the players, they don't know the history, they don't know like, all of that stuff about players. Like Debbie said, I think that can be helpful, especially from a parent perspective, to have that. And then it's not feeling like, nepotism, like you mentioned, Justin, is happening, or whatever the case is there. And I think even if you are going to do tryouts, like having them close to parents is a great idea, because that just like eliminates them as watchers and observers, and like they can't make comments on it because they weren't there to see things. So I think
Better
that's
for the
super
kids.
helpful. What?
Better for the kids too.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. It takes a lot of pressure off of them for that as well. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the last question that I have for you guys is kind of just a little, I don't even know if you want to change these things, but just how big is your association currently? And then what would your ideal size for your association be? So I'll have Matt, you start, and then I'll go backwards. So then it'll be Debbie, Brian, and then Justin will finish it off there.
Well, like I said, our youth association, we start at U6s, go up through 14s. We have one team at 14, one at 12, two at 10, and last year we had 3 at 8, and like 25 U6s. So the numbers, I mean, are definitely stronger, the younger they are. So like, our biggest responsibility is to make sure it's still worth their, making sure that it's worth their time showing up for the next bunch of years.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. So roughly total, I mean, somewhere probably a little under 100 total.
Awesome.
So
Do you want to grow, or do you feel good about like the size that you guys are at right now?
well, ideally, I mean, if we could get 25 to 30 at a level like that probably for us would be really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's a ways off yet right now, especially with our 12s and 14s. They're a little light right now, so we could build those up a little more.
Yeah. Awesome. Debbie, how about you guys?
we're at a pretty consistent 3 8U teams, 2 10Us, 2 12Us, 2 14Us. And I would like to, we could see and handle more growth at the 10U level, because they're just kind of running around at that point.
Yeah.
I would love to grow at the 12U level, so typically our spring is really healthy and it falls off in the summer where we have to make the decision of, do we do one big 12U team, knowing that people are gone a lot in the summer vacations, absences are way up,
Yeah.
or two 12U teams where we're constantly like borrowing for different games. We've done both. They both suck. And I'd love if we had healthier teams like through both the spring and summer for 12U. And our teams at 14U are at solid, we're like healthy sizes for both spring and summers. I think the more girls that play, the better. So I'd love to see like a third 14U team. But I do think the season where we had 3 was an outlier.
Yeah.
Again, don't know where they all came from, but out of the woodwork. And when that did happen, we had 1 A team and 2 equivalent B teams. We don't turn away any players, so there's no cuts in anywhere in our program.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, if we can grow, amazing, we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Brian, how about you guys?
Yeah, we have about 80 girls across the programs that we serve, but there's 5 city names in our name, so there's plenty of room to grow. Like, I would really like each city to have their own team at some point. So yeah, we're absolutely want to grow and want to get bigger. We got 1 team at each level, 6U to 14U in the spring, and then we have a 14 and an 18U in the summer. Again, we're right on the cusp, so the more the merrier. I think lacrosse is an awesome sport. And the more people that can play, we want them.
Yeah, agreed. Justin, how about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we've hit a little bit of critical mass from what the board can handle. So we've been really, the last year of my tenure as president was focused on getting more hands to help, just because, things went next level when we got to mid 300 kids. Right, when we started having, 3 8U teams, 3 10U teams, 3 12U teams on both boys and girls side, it just got to be like, like the 2 or 3 fields you use is no longer enough, right? Like, the coaching staffs in your circles are no longer enough. Like, everything just explodes to the point where it's just like, it got out of control. Like, it was, and I'm proud of the job we did, but it just got to be a lot. Our growth is basically from what is currently 7th graders down. So like, our 14U teams are just starting to see it. Like, after having 2 14U boys teams 2 years ago, the lean ones, last year we ran what we call a super roster, which is like a sit out roster, right? We had 28 kids and we sit, 7 of them every game, right? And we just schedule extra games. So that was a little step back because that 8th grade, that 7th grade class from last year, now 8th graders, is a small group, but that's almost gone. So we're going to be very kind of consistent, kind of top to bottom. And I think it's probably right around 3 teams at almost every level. Getting to 4 teams at 12 and 14 just seems insanity to me. I mean, to, Debbie's point, like, it'd be great, right? Like, I want as many kids playing lacrosse as possible. Yeah. I do think, though, lacrosse is still, it's hard to staff teams, right? And at the end of the day, the thing that I think has helped us grow more than anything is the people that have coached for us, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what your kids remember. They remember how they felt on the field and how coach made them feel. And I mean, I coached 12B last year. I coached 12A this year. We went 1-29. We lost 29 games. We won 1 game, 1-0. It was like we won the Super Bowl. And like, every single one of those kids except for 1 came back, right? And the coaches, like our coaches, we have some great coaches. And I worry about how we could keep our quality if we now have to do 4 teams, right? Like, I think we probably have some cracks showing at 3, as far as the experience being the same across all 3 teams. And we do a lot of stuff together. Like our 12U teams, I run a practice on Mondays with 90 minutes with 65 kids. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we've had to get creative to help build that culture. And I worry that I don't know how we would maintain who we've been if we get much bigger, but a good problem to have, just like tryouts and everything else.
Yeah, it's always or we also feel the kind of push-pull of like volunteer, board, and otherwise capacity to what we need to like output for a great experience, and just how many coaches can we recruit. And we always manage to, to figure it out. But with growth comes more of those stretch problems. So.
Well, on the girls' side too, I mean, coaching on the girls' side is a completely different animal. Like finding coaches on the girls' side is a completely different animal than on the boys' side. Part of that probably is where my contacts are, but I mean, we're constantly calling Jing and you know what I mean? Like, hey, we need help. Like, you got anybody? So,
yeah. Well, and it's hard to like, because we are so different, like you can't, you have to learn a whole different game to be able to coach both. So it's like where we have like, soccer is like the same rules. So it's like you only have to learn one game and you can coach like your daughter and your son, where like lacrosse is just not that way, which is a bummer.
It's like having softball and baseball, but
yeah,
even less alike, right? Like, nobody has a softball and a baseball association that's run under one umbrella. Like, but we do it.
Yep. Yeah, very true. Awesome. If you guys have any last things to say.
I love talking about this stuff with different associations. So I'm always, I mean, maybe KK, you can share info, but like text or call, maybe Minnetonka's been through it. Maybe we're going through it, like anything to kind of troubleshoot, help, just talk about it. It can get also kind of lonely when you're running such fast moving programs. Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Yeah, if you guys are okay with it, I'll send out an email following up and like with your information so people can reach out if they have any questions, because at some point everybody's been through it, and like you said, Debbie, it can feel very lonely sometimes when you're going through it, especially if your board is small or mostly made up of parent volunteers. So I'll make sure to get that out. And then make sure to use Jing and I as a reference too. We're happy to have those conversations. At the end of the day, like we want to get as many kids playing lacrosse as we can. And so like the best way to do that is for us to give information to you guys to get that out, to get more kids playing. So thank you guys for taking the time. I hope you guys all have a nice little break now before the Vikings game starts. And I hope you're all Vikings fans. I guess I should have asked that first. Though I was just telling my husband, like, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Lions. So I was like, at least if like we're not the first seed, then the Lions are, and it's not like it's the Packers. So
it's hard to hate them.
It is. It is. I know. And they're a good team. So yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much, guys. We'll see you guys this spring.
Cool. Thanks
for
guys.
hosting.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.